In the world of high-stakes diplomacy, where subtlety and strategic maneuvers dominate, Vladimir Putin has made a surprising and unusually direct move against former U.S. President Donald Trump. Russian state-controlled media has taken a bold and seemingly personal step in ridiculing Trump by showcasing nude photos of his wife, Melania Trump, in a blatant attempt to humiliate the former president. This act isn't just shocking for its audacity. It's also a striking reminder of the power imbalance that Putin holds over Trump and, by extension, how Russia views its leverage over certain American leaders. This video examines this provocative move by the Kremlin, its political implications, and what it reveals about Trump's relationship with Putin, a relationship that many critics have long viewed as alarmingly one-sided. As we delve into the latest incidents, it becomes clear that Putin's contempt for Trump goes beyond politics. It's a matter of dominance. We'll explore how Putin's state-run media apparatus has openly dismissed Trump's claims of diplomatic clout, countering Trump's own claims with escalated military actions and stark public denials of any recent discussions. The irony? Trump's assertions of influence over Russia seem to fall apart with every Russian media broadcast, each one more insulting than the last. Let's unpack the series of events over the last 48 hours that expose the depth of Putin's grip over Trump and why it should matter to every American. The mocking of Melania, Russian state media's bold message. In an unprecedented move, Russian state-run television took aim at Melania Trump, using nude photos of her from her past as a model, laughingly displayed on air. The hosts reportedly mocked both her and, by association, her husband. For those familiar with Russian media tactics, this isn't a common occurrence. The Kremlin and its media arms typically don't involve themselves in the personal lives of international figures this directly, especially when it could risk diplomatic backlash. However, here, they've made an exception, and it's clearly meant as a power play against Trump himself. This calculated insult is designed to remind Trump, and by extension, his supporters, of the subservient position Russia perceives him to be in. By targeting Melania, Putin seems to aim for a deeply personal dig, perhaps aware that such a display would hit harder than any policy criticism ever could. After all, Trump's obsession with loyalty and image is no secret, and Putin appears to be using that knowledge to maximum effect. Putin's denial of communication, dismissing Trump's claims of influence. Beyond the mockery of Melania, Putin's state media has also been busy tearing down Trump's recent claims of diplomatic influence over Russia. Trump reportedly told the Washington Post that he had a conversation with Putin, in which he very strongly advised him to de-escalate the situation in Ukraine. According to Trump, this was a crucial step in bringing stability to the region. However, almost immediately after these statements, the Kremlin issued an official rebuttal, flatly denying that any such communication took place. Kremlin spokespersons called Trump's statements pure fiction, essentially labeling him a liar on the world stage. This isn't merely a diplomatic snub, it's a public shaming. Trump's narrative, which portrays him as a powerful negotiator capable of holding Putin in check, is left in tatters. And, rather than quietly dismissing his claims, Putin's team chose to make an example out of him, signaling that Russia has no respect for Trump's supposed strength in foreign policy. Actions speak louder. Russia's escalation in Ukraine. If Putin's verbal slapdown of Trump wasn't clear enough, his actions certainly drove the point home. In the days immediately following Trump's supposed conversation with Putin, Russia has not only refused to de-escalate its involvement in Ukraine, but it has escalated dramatically. Reports indicate that Russian forces have been massing on the Ukrainian border with approximately 50,000 troops ready to launch a new offensive. Russian media outlets broadcast this show of force as a signal of Putin's determination to maintain control over Ukraine, directly opposing any narrative that Trump might have tried to spin about his influence on the Russian leader. What's more, the Kremlin has been clear that this increase in military pressure is part of a broader strategy, one that ignores Trump's so-called request. In fact, Russian forces have even gone so far as to target key infrastructure in Ukraine, including the destruction of a major reservoir dam, causing significant flooding and displacement. These moves are a stark reminder of Putin's disregard for Trump's influence and an assertion of Russian power that stands in direct opposition to Trump's claims. A debt to be paid. The Kremlin's open call for Trump's loyalty. The final blow to Trump's narrative came in the form of an open statement from one of Putin's top aides, who suggested that Trump owes Putin for his support during the 2016 election. This statement, reported widely in Russian media, hinted that Trump's rise to power was partly due to forces in Russia that now expect Trump to fulfill his obligations. In diplomatic terms, this is an extraordinary admission. It's rare for a country, especially Russia, to make such blatant insinuations about a foreign leader's indebtedness. The message here is unmistakable. Putin is calling in his favors. Trump, for all his bravado, is being positioned as a man who cannot stand up to Putin and, worse, as someone who is being publicly reminded of his supposed obligations to a foreign power. This goes beyond the typical allegations of foreign influence. It's a direct power play that underscores just how tightly Putin believes he has Trump under control. Corporate media's silence. A missed story of national importance? One of the more troubling aspects of this saga is the mainstream media's relative silence on these developments. While some outlets have picked up on individual pieces of the story, there's been surprisingly little coverage of the cumulative effect of Putin's actions against Trump. If Trump's narrative of power and influence were to unravel, one would expect major news outlets to cover it extensively, especially given the implications for U.S. foreign policy and the 2024 election. However, this hasn't been the case. Critics argue that corporate media's reluctance to cover this story thoroughly points to an unwillingness to confront the reality of foreign influence on American politics, especially when that influence appears to be exerted over a former U.S. president. This selective coverage has led some observers to turn to independent media outlets for information, questioning whether mainstream media has missed a crucial story with serious implications for American democracy. The events of the past 48 hours have exposed a sobering truth about Trump's relationship with Putin. It is not one of mutual respect, nor is it a relationship where Trump holds any real power. Instead, it is a relationship dominated by Putin, who has taken extraordinary steps to humiliate Trump on the world stage, from airing personal photos of his wife to dismissing Trump's claims of influence outright. Through state media, Putin has ridiculed Trump, exposed his vulnerabilities, and reminded him and the American public that the Kremlin holds all the cards in this relationship. As the United States faces the prospect of another election cycle, the question of foreign influence and political subservience becomes increasingly pressing. Putin's actions serve as a reminder that, in the realm of global politics, power is not a matter of claims or image, it's about leverage. And in this case, Putin has made it crystal clear that he holds that leverage over Trump. For Americans, the implications of this dynamic are profound, casting a long shadow over the idea of national sovereignty and the independence of American leaders from foreign powers. In the end, Putin's message couldn't be clearer. Trump, once championed as the strongman of the West, has become little more than a pawn in Putin's game, a man who owes more than he can repay and who commands less respect than he would have Americans believe. The stakes couldn't be higher, and as Putin continues to press his advantage, the world watches and waits to see what the future holds for this uneasy and increasingly one-sided relationship.